Hello everyone in year 3 and welcome back after a brilliantly deserved and hopefully restful half term. Now, getting back into our learning, we're going to be looking at our brand new class reader for the next couple of weeks, which is called The Wreck of the Zanzibar by Michael Morpurgo. Now, this book is really exciting for me because it's based in a place where I have been on holiday many times, and also Miss Knight's been on holiday there many times too. It's a place called the Isles of Scilly. And I'm going to explain where the Isles of Scilly is shortly, but let's have a look at the cover of the book. So it's called The Wreck of the Zanzibar. So what do you guys think the Zanzibar might be, and what might happen to it? Interesting. We can see a really old, tall ship, kind of like a pirate ship, and we can see a girl looking out to sea beneath it. Can you guys make any predictions about what might happen in the story based on this cover? I wonder what you come up with. So Michael Morpurgo is a really famous writer. He's written over 100 books in the last 40 years, and he's one of the world's most renowned authors, which means he's one of the world's respected authors. He wrote a very famous book called War Horse, which is turned into a famous movie and a famous play. Now, he was born in 1943 in England and went to primary school in London. And then he went to a boarding school, which is like a private school in Sussex. After that, he went into the army, but he decided it wasn't for him. He left the army, got married, had 3 children, and then became a teacher. He enjoyed reading so much, he decided to write his own books. Now, Michael Morpurgo, like me, spent a lot of his holidays in this place here called the Isles of Scilly. Isles just means islands. It's another word for islands. And if we have a look here, these are the main islands of the Isles of Scilly. Now, they are a beautiful place, and they look almost like they shouldn't belong in England because they look almost tropical, but they do. And they are around 30 miles off the end of Land's End. So if you look at my mouse, Bristol's here, Land's End goes all the way down here to the very tip of Cornwall, the county of Cornwall, on the very tip of the UK. And then 30 miles across the sea, the Isles of Scilly exist here. So if you zoom in on Land's End, you can see it here. It's a bit like a foot. And then 30 miles off the coast is Land's End. Now let's have a closer look at the Isles of Scilly. The Isles of Scilly is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main inhabited islands, which means islands where people live. But there are many more, like Samson, Annet, Norad Rocks, many more islands around the Isles of Scilly that are inhabited by wildlife, such as birds, seals, and often they do get dolphins. And recently they've had lots of whales visiting the Isles of Scilly. Now, these islands are very small. There's not many miles to walk around the whole of the biggest island, St. Mary's. And this is where most people do visit in the Isles of Scilly. You can catch a boat, which takes about 2 hours, and lots of people get seasick on it because it's a very rough boat. And it comes in to the Isles of Scilly and comes to dock here, right in the harbour of St. Mary's. Now, our story starts on this island over here, which is called Briar. This is my favourite of all of the islands in the Isles of Scilly. It's a beautiful, untouched island without any cars. There's a tractor, but that's about it. There isn't any other cars on the island. There's amazing, beautiful, enclosed beaches around here. But on this side, it's barren. It's a bit more exposed to the ocean and the elements. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to watch the waves come in. Now, Briar is also really important to me because my youngest son, Finley, we gave him a second name, which is Briar. So his full name is Finley Briar Matthews. And that's because we loved this place so much, we wanted to name him after it. And for when we go to visit it with him in the future, he'll kind of understand its beauty. So here's just some photos I've taken on holidays in the Isles of Scilly. Here's one from St. Agnes, one of the islands. What a beautiful place. It almost looks tropical. And this is a beautiful deserted beach on the northern part of St. Mary's. There was no one around. Literally, it was just me and my wife here on the beach for about 2 hours before someone else turned up. And you can see some other islands in the distance here. This one's St. Martin's, and this one's called Tresco, which is famous for white sand beaches. You can see the white sand in the distance over there. Okay, so a bit of word aware. Within this first chapter of The Wreck of the Zanzibar, you're going to see the word cocoa. So cocoa is pure chocolate powder, so chocolate that's made into powder and mixed with milk to make hot chocolate. It's very bitter. You also have to put sugar with it to make it into what you guys would know as hot chocolate. Briar, as I've exchanged, is one of the inhabited islands in the Isles of Scilly. And lustily is a word which means with passion and vigour. Okay, so let's stop talking about it and let's actually go back to the story and start reading. So I hope you enjoy this book as much as I do, and I hope you're inspired by the Isles of Scilly as much as I am. Okay. Great Aunt Laura. My great Aunt Laura died a few months ago. She was 100 years old. She had her cocoa last thing at night, as she usually did, put the cat out, went to sleep, and then never woke up. There's not a better way to die. I took the boat across to Scilly for the funeral. Almost everyone in the family did. I met cousins and aunts and uncles I hardly recognised, and who hardly recognised me. The little church on Briar was packed, standing room only. Everyone on Briar was there, and they came from all over the Scilly Isles, from St. Mary's, St. Martin's, St. Agnes and Tresco. We sang the hymns lustily because we knew great Aunt Laura would enjoy a rousing send-off. Afterwards, we had a family gathering in her tiny cottage overlooking stinking Porth Bay. There was tea and crusty brown bread and honey. I took one mouthful and I was a child again. Wanting to be on my own, I went up the narrow stairs to the room that had been mine when I came every summer for my holidays. The same oil lamp was by the bed, the same peeling wallpaper, the same faded curtains with the red sailing boats dipping through the waves. I sat down on the bed and closed my eyes. I was 8 years old again, and ahead of me were 2 weeks of sand and sea and boats and shrimping and oyster catches and gannets and great Aunt Laura's stories every night before she drew the curtains against the moon and left me alone in my bed. Someone called from downstairs, and I was back too now. Everyone was crowded in her sitting room. There was a cardboard box open in the middle of the floor. "Ah, there you are, Michael," said Uncle Will. He was a little irritated, I thought. "We'll begin then." And a hush fell around the room. He dipped into the box and held up a parcel. "It looks as if she's left us one each," said Uncle Will. Every parcel was wrapped in old newspaper and tied with string. There was a large brown label attached to each one. Uncle Will read out the names. I had to wait some minutes for mine. There was nothing I particularly wanted except Zanzibar, of course, but then everyone wanted Zanzibar. Uncle Will was waving a parcel at me. "Michael," he said, "here is yours." I took it upstairs and unwrapped it sitting on the bed. It felt like a book of some sort, and so it was, but not a printed book. It was handmade, handwritten in pencil. The pages were sewn together. The title on the cover was The Diary of Laura Perryman. And there was a watercolour painting on the cover of a four-masted ship keeling over in the storm and heading for the rocks. With the book, there was an envelope. I opened it and read. "Dear Michael, when you were little, I told you lots of stories about Briar, about the Isles of Scilly. You know, about the ghost on Samson, about the bell that rings under the sea off St. Martin's, about King Arthur still waiting in his cave under the Eastern Isles. You remember? Well, here is my story, the story of me and my twin brother Billy, whom you never knew. How I wish you had. It is a true story, and I did not want it to die with me. When I was young, I kept a diary, not an everyday diary. I didn't write in it very often, just whenever I felt like it. Most of it wasn't worth reading, and I've already thrown it away. I've lived an ordinary sort of life, but for a few months, a long, long time ago, my life was not ordinary at all. This is the diary of those few months. Do you remember? You always used to ask where Zanzibar came from. You called him marzipan when you were small. I never told you, did I? I never told anyone. Well, now you're going to find out at last. Goodbye, dear Michael, and God bless you, your great Aunt Laura. P.S. I hope you like my little sketches. I'm a better artist than I am a writer, I think. When I come back in the next life, and I shall be a great artist. I promise myself. Wow, what a really exciting introduction. I wonder what this diary is going to have in store. Wow. Okay, so if you have a look, here's one of her drawings here. Now, one of the words that came up in that chapter, which you guys might not know, is keeled. So when a boat keels over, it's when it's starting to rock over to one side and sink, just like this boat here. Okay, thanks for listening to the first installment of the Wreck of the Zanzibar, and I'll speak to you guys tomorrow. Bye.